35 years earlier, when Evelyn Carter was 8 months pregnant and 4 days away from losing her apartment, a woman handed her an envelope with exactly $480 inside. Evelyn never forgot the amount. She never learned where it came from. Now, at 64, she was standing in a charity auction in Chicago when something on a display table stopped her in the middle of a step. A silver angel. Evelyn didn't move. People passed behind her carrying wineglasses and auction catalogs. Someone laughed near the stage. A volunteer was explaining the bidding rules to a couple beside her. Evelyn heard none of it. She walked closer. The music box was small enough to hold in both hands. Its silver finish had darkened around the edges with age. The angel sat on top with its hands together and 2 tiny blue stones for eyes. But that wasn't what made Evelyn's stomach tighten. The left wing leaned slightly lower than the right. Crooked. Just a little. Evelyn bent closer to the glass. Near the base was a thin scratch running diagonally across the silver. She knew that scratch. For a few seconds, she simply stared. 35 years disappeared. Kansas. A small apartment. Swollen ankles. An overdue rent notice folded inside her purse. And a woman named Martha Reed pushing a plain white envelope across a break-room table. Evelyn straightened. She looked for the auction number beside the music box and found a volunteer. "Excuse me. Do you know where this came from?" The young woman checked her paperwork. It was donated through an estate liquidation company. "From Chicago?" "I think so. Or somewhere outside the city." Evelyn looked back at the angel. That made even less sense. When bidding opened, she raised her paddle. Another bidder joined in. Then another. Evelyn barely looked at them. The price climbed well beyond what an old music box should have brought, but she kept her paddle in her hand. When the auctioneer finally pointed toward her, Evelyn let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. 20 minutes later, the silver angel was sitting in its padded box on the passenger seat of her car. Evelyn didn't start the engine. She opened the auction paperwork instead. The first page was only a receipt. The second listed the donating organization. The third contained a reference number and the name of the liquidation company that had supplied the item. Evelyn read the page twice. Then she looked at the angel beside her. The last time she remembered seeing that crooked wing, it had been more than 500 miles away. In Kansas. In Martha Reed's home. So how had it ended up in Chicago? In the spring of 1991, Evelyn Carter measured almost everything in dollars. Gas to get to work. Groceries for the week. The electric bill sitting unopened beside the toaster. And rent. $480. She was 8 months pregnant then, living in a small apartment in Wichita, Kansas. By that point, bending down to tie her shoes had become a negotiation, and standing through an entire shift left her ankles swollen by lunchtime. Her husband was gone. So was most of the money they had saved. That Tuesday, Evelyn arrived at work with an envelope from her landlord folded inside her purse. She had read it enough times. Reading it again wasn't going to change the number. Martha Reed noticed anyway. Martha worked a few stations down from Evelyn. She was older, quiet, and had a habit of noticing things without making people explain them. At lunch, Evelyn sat in the break room with a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking. Martha took the chair across from her. "You eat today?" "I'll eat when I get home." Martha looked at her for a moment. "That wasn't what I asked." Evelyn almost smiled. Almost. Then Martha's eyes dropped to the envelope sticking out of her purse. "You short on rent?" Evelyn looked away. "I'll figure it out." "How short?" "Martha." "How short?" Evelyn rubbed one hand over her stomach. $480. Martha nodded once. That was all. The next morning, she came to Evelyn's station before their shift started and placed a plain white envelope beside her. Evelyn opened it. There were 20s inside. She counted them once. Then again. $480. Her eyes went straight to Martha. No. Yes. I can't take this. You can pay your rent. Martha, where did you get $480? Martha picked up her coffee. I sold something I wasn't using. What? Something. Evelyn pushed the envelope toward her. Martha pushed it back. Keep your apartment. I'll pay you back. I know. I mean it. I know that too. Then Martha glanced at the clock. We're going to be late. And that was the end of the conversation. At least, Martha made it seem that way. Evelyn paid the rent that afternoon. For years afterward, she remembered the envelope, the 20s, and Martha drinking her coffee as if $480 were nothing worth discussing. There was only one part she never went back and asked about. What had Martha sold? Martha never treated the $480 like it had bought her a place in Evelyn's life. She never brought it up again. That was the strange part. If Evelyn's car refused to start after work, Martha drove her home. If Evelyn was too tired to stop at the grocery store, Martha would show up the next morning with bread, milk, eggs, and some excuse about buying too much. When Daniel was born, Martha came to the hospital carrying a paper bag from a diner. You look terrible, she told Evelyn. Evelyn laughed for the first time that day. Thank you. You're welcome. Eat your sandwich. That was Martha. No speeches. No keeping score. Just the next thing that needed doing. Earlier that year, before Evelyn fell behind on the rent, she had stopped by Martha's house to return a casserole dish. It was a small place on a quiet street, neat without being fancy. While Martha was in the kitchen, Evelyn noticed a music box on a shelf in the living room. A silver angel sat on top. Tiny blue eyes. One wing leaned a little lower than the other. Evelyn reached toward it but didn't touch. Pretty, isn't she? Martha had come back into the room. Very. Martha picked up the music box and wound the key underneath. A soft melody filled the room. Evelyn smiled. Where'd you get it? Martha looked at the angel for a second. Long time ago. Then she set it back on the shelf. Evelyn didn't ask anything else. At the time, there seemed to be no reason to. Life got busier after that. Evelyn returned to work. Daniel learned to sit up, then crawl. Martha still helped when she could, but eventually the company cut positions. Martha's was one of them. For a while, they called each other. Then Martha moved. Evelyn moved too. One Christmas card came back undeliverable. A phone number stopped working. Months became years in the ordinary way they sometimes do. Evelyn never forgot Martha. But she built a life. She raised Daniel. She worked. She moved forward because that was what Martha had always told her to do. Just keep going, honey. And Evelyn did. Now, 35 years later, she sat in her car in Chicago with that same silver angel beside her. Same blue eyes. Same crooked wing. Same scratch near the base. Evelyn rested her hand on the padded box. Back then, Martha had said she sold something. Evelyn had never asked what. Now, for the first time, she wondered when the silver angel had disappeared from Martha's life. The next morning, Evelyn called the liquidation company listed on the auction paperwork. She expected a receptionist. Instead, after 2 transfers and 6 minutes of hold music, she reached a man named Frank who sounded as if he had already answered too many questions before 9 o'clock. I'm trying to trace an item your company supplied to a charity auction, Evelyn said. What kind of item? A music box. Silver. An angel on top. There was a pause. We move a lot of property, ma'am. I have the reference number. That helped. Evelyn read it slowly. Frank typed for a while. Okay. I've got it. Evelyn sat straighter at her kitchen table. Where did it come from? Storage liquidation. Whose storage? I can't give you somebody's private information. I understand. Can you tell me where? Another pause. Outside Chicago. Unit was part of a bulk purchase about 18 months ago. Evelyn frowned. 18 months? That's when we got it. So you don't know who originally owned the music box? No, ma'am. The trail had already grown colder. Frank did give her the name of the storage company. Evelyn called them next. That led to another number, then an email address, then a woman who explained that the unit had changed hands after an unpaid account and contained boxes belonging to more than one person. More than one? That's what the inventory notes say. Evelyn looked across the table. The Silver Angel sat beside her coffee. So there's no way to know which person owned this? Not from the general inventory. Evelyn almost thanked her and hung up. Then the woman added, some of the boxes had old shipping labels. Evelyn stopped. From where? I'd have to pull the archived photographs. Could you? It took most of the afternoon. At 4:17, an email arrived. Evelyn opened it immediately. There were 12 photographs. Old cardboard boxes. Furniture. Kitchenware. Christmas decorations. She enlarged each image. The seventh photograph showed a battered box with 3 shipping labels layered over one another. Illinois. Missouri. And underneath them, barely visible at the edge, an older label. Kansas. Evelyn leaned closer to the screen. The name was partly covered by tape. Only the last name remained clear. Reed. Her hand went still on the mouse. 35 years had passed since she had seen that name written on anything. Martha Reed. For the first time since the auction, Evelyn had more than a memory. She had a trail. The name Reed was enough to keep Evelyn awake that night. By breakfast, she had enlarged the storage photograph until the cardboard fibers looked like tree bark. The old Kansas shipping label was damaged, but there was a number beneath the name. Not a phone number. A box number. Evelyn called the storage company again. The woman from the day before remembered her. You're still working on that music box? I'm afraid so. That earned a small laugh. Evelyn gave her the number. More archived records had to be pulled. Another hour passed. Then the woman called back. That box came into the unit with property from an estate sale in Missouri. Evelyn frowned. Missouri? Yes. But the Missouri dealer bought several lots from Kansas years earlier. Can you tell when? I have a date attached to that particular inventory. Evelyn reached for a pen. Please. May of 1991. Her pen stopped. For a moment, Evelyn said nothing. 1991. She had expected the music box to have left Martha much later. After Martha lost her job. After money became tight. That explanation had already formed neatly in Evelyn's mind. Martha must have needed cash. She must have sold some belongings. The Silver Angel had simply been one of them. Except Martha hadn't lost her job in May. Evelyn remembered that clearly. Daniel had already been born by the time the layoffs came. Martha had visited the hospital. She had brought that terrible diner sandwich. She had still been working when Evelyn returned from maternity leave. Evelyn pulled an old photo album from the cabinet beneath her bookshelf. There was Daniel in the hospital. There was Martha beside the bed, holding him awkwardly and smiling at the camera. The date written on the back was June 3, 1991. Evelyn looked from the photograph to the notes beside her phone. The Silver Angel had already entered the resale trail by then. She sat back. Her first explanation was wrong. Martha hadn't sold it because she lost her job. Whatever happened to that music box had happened earlier. Evelyn picked up her phone again. Do you have anything before May? Not here, the woman said. The Missouri dealer might. Evelyn wrote down another name and another number. Before hanging up, she asked one last question. Are you certain about the date? Yes, ma'am. May 1991. Evelyn thanked her and set the phone down. Across the table, the silver angel faced her with its crooked wing. Martha had given Evelyn the rent money that spring. $480. And somehow, before Daniel was born, the angel had already entered the resale trail. The date was wrong. The Missouri dealer was harder to find. The number Evelyn had been given no longer worked, and the business itself had closed years earlier. She spent most of the morning searching old listings until she found the former owner's name. Harold Bennett. There were 6 Harold Bennetts in Missouri. The fourth one answered. Yes, I used to deal in estates, he said. Why? Evelyn explained the music box. Harold didn't remember it. She hadn't expected him to. Then she mentioned the Kansas lot from 1991. That far back, he said. Lady, I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. Evelyn smiled despite herself. I understand. But I kept records. That changed things. Harold had stored old business ledgers in his basement. He wasn't promising anything, but he agreed to look. 2 days later, Evelyn's phone rang. I found your Kansas lot. She grabbed the notebook beside her. What does it say? Mostly junk. Lamps. Dishes. Small furniture. Some collectibles. And the music box? There's one line for a silver musical figurine. Could be yours. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the pen. When did you buy it? Harold read the date. April 27, 1991. Earlier than the May record. Who sold it to you? Didn't buy it from the owner. Came through a resale shop in Wichita. Wichita. Evelyn stood up without realizing it. Do you have the name? Harold gave it to her. The shop was long gone, but an old city directory led Evelyn to a former employee. That woman remembered very little after 35 years, though she did remember that the store regularly bought unclaimed items from local pawn shops. That word stayed with Evelyn. Pawn shops. She went back to the dates. April 27th. The resale shop had to receive the angel before that. Which meant the angel had been out of Martha's hands even earlier. Evelyn opened an old desk drawer and pulled out a folder she hadn't touched in years. Inside were Daniel's hospital papers, an old lease, and a few receipts she had kept for reasons she couldn't explain. Then she found it. A rent receipt. April 15, 1991. Paid in full. $480. Evelyn sat very still. The silver angel was on the desk beside her. She didn't have proof. Not yet. A date could be a coincidence. An old music box could have changed hands for any number of reasons. Evelyn knew better than to turn a suspicion into a memory. But for the first time, she allowed herself to ask the question she had avoided since Chicago. Martha had said she'd sold something. The angel had entered the resale trail in April of 1991. And that same month, Martha had handed Evelyn exactly $480. Could those two things have been connected? Evelyn did not call Daniel. Not yet. She knew what he would say. Mom, slow down. And he would have been right. She had dates. She had an old music box. She had a 35-year-old memory of an envelope full of cash. She did not have Martha. So Evelyn went looking for her. The last address she had was useless. Martha had moved from the little Wichita house years ago. The phone number in Evelyn's old address book belonged to someone else now. She started with public records, then an old church directory, then the name of a woman who had once worked with them. That woman remembered Martha. Last I heard, she moved closer to her sister. Do you know where? Somewhere near Hutchinson, I think. It wasn't much. But it was something. 2 more phone calls led Evelyn to an old Christmas card. The return address led to a house Martha had rented for 6 years. The landlord remembered her too. "Quiet lady," he said. "Always paid on time." "Do you know where she went?" "No. But she listed an emergency contact." Evelyn waited. He wouldn't give her the number, and Evelyn didn't argue. Instead, she left her own. "If you can reach them, just tell them Evelyn Carter is trying to find Martha Reed." That evening, nothing happened. The next morning, nothing happened. By afternoon, Evelyn had started wondering whether 35 years was simply too long. Then her phone rang. A woman named Susan had gotten her number from the former landlord. She was Martha's niece. Evelyn sat down. "Is Martha still alive?" There was a small pause. "Yes." Evelyn closed her eyes. For a moment, that answer was enough. Susan explained that Martha still lived in Kansas, about 50 miles northwest of Wichita. She was doing well, still stubborn, still living on her own. That sounded exactly like Martha. Evelyn laughed softly. Susan agreed to call her aunt first. An hour later, she called back with an address. 2 days after that, Evelyn was driving across Kansas with the Silver Angel wrapped carefully in a towel on the passenger seat. No speech prepared. No plan beyond reaching the front door. When she finally pulled into the driveway, the house was smaller than she expected. Evelyn carried the music box to the porch. She stood there longer than she meant to. Then she knocked. Footsteps moved inside. The lock turned. And the door opened. Martha Reed stood in the doorway with one hand still on the knob. She was 80 now. Her hair was white and cut shorter than Evelyn remembered. She wore a blue cardigan, dark slacks, and the same kind of sensible shoes she had worn to work 35 years earlier. For a second, neither woman spoke. Martha looked at Evelyn's face. Then her eyes narrowed. "Evelyn?" Evelyn smiled. "Hi, Martha." Martha stared another second. "Well." That was all she said. Then she opened the door wider. "You drove all the way out here to stand on my porch?" Evelyn laughed. There she was. Martha led her into a small living room and immediately asked if she wanted coffee. Evelyn almost said no. Then she remembered that refusing Martha's coffee had never accomplished much. "Sure." While Martha was in the kitchen, Evelyn set the wrapped bundle on the coffee table. Martha returned with 2 mugs. She noticed it. "What did you bring?" Evelyn pulled the towel away. Martha stopped. The coffee cup remained in her hand. Her eyes went first to the blue stones. Then the crooked wing. Then the scratch near the base. Martha put her cup down carefully. "Where did you get that?" "At an auction in Chicago." "Chicago?" Evelyn nodded. "I've spent the last few weeks trying to figure out how it got there." Martha sat down. She reached for the Silver Angel but paused before touching it. Finally, her fingers rested against one wing. "I haven't seen this in a very long time." Evelyn sat across from her. "I remember it from your old house." Martha gave a small smile. "My husband gave it to me." Evelyn waited. "Daniel bought it for our anniversary," Martha said. "Our last one together." The room seemed quieter after that. Evelyn had known Martha was a widow. She had known her husband died before they became close. She had never known about the angel. How long before he passed? About 7 months. Martha turned the key underneath. The mechanism resisted at first. Then the old melody began. Martha listened without speaking. Evelyn looked at the woman who had once handed her $480 as casually as someone passing the salt. The question Evelyn had carried from Chicago suddenly felt heavier. She leaned forward. "Martha. If Daniel gave you this." Martha looked up. "Why did you ever let it go?" Martha did not answer right away. She let the music box finish its tune. Then she reached underneath, stopped the mechanism, and set the silver angel carefully on the coffee table. "I needed the money," she said. Evelyn watched her. "When?" Martha gave her a look. "You didn't drive all the way from Chicago just to return this, did you?" "No. I didn't think so." Evelyn reached into her purse and pulled out the notes she had made over the past few weeks. "I traced it backward. Chicago, Missouri, then Wichita." Martha glanced at the pages. Evelyn continued. "The Missouri dealer had it by April 27, 1991. Martha's expression changed. Only slightly. But Evelyn saw it. "Martha, I paid my rent on April 15th. Martha looked down at the angel. Neither woman said anything. Then Evelyn said the number. $480. Martha leaned back. "You remember that?" "I remember every dollar." A faint smile crossed Martha's face. "I figured you would." Evelyn waited. Martha stood. "Come with me." She walked down the hallway to a small bedroom that had been turned into a sewing room. On the closet shelf sat a faded cardboard box. Martha brought it down and carried it back to the living room. Inside were old photographs, insurance papers, birthday cards, and envelopes held together with rubber bands. "What are we looking for?" Evelyn asked. "Something I haven't looked at in years." Martha went through the papers slowly. Then she found a narrow envelope with the name of an old Wichita pawnshop printed across the top. She held it for a moment. Then passed it to Evelyn. Inside was a yellowed ticket. Evelyn unfolded it. Her eyes went first to the date. April 12, 1991. 3 days before her rent had been paid. Her breathing slowed. She read the description. A silver musical figurine. Evelyn looked at the angel on the coffee table. Then back at the ticket. At the bottom was the amount Martha had received. Evelyn didn't speak. She didn't need to count anything this time. The number had lived in her memory for 35 years. $480. She lifted her eyes to Martha. Martha said nothing. And suddenly, Evelyn understood exactly what had been inside that plain white envelope. Evelyn kept looking at the pawn ticket. April 12, 1991. $480. She read it once more, although there was nothing left to misunderstand. Then she looked at Martha. "You pawned Daniel's music box for me?" Martha shook her head. "For the rent." "Martha. You needed a place to live. That was the last anniversary gift your husband gave you." "I know what it was." "And you gave it up without telling me?" Martha folded her hands in her lap. "If I'd told you, would you have taken the money?" Evelyn opened her mouth. Nothing came out. They both knew the answer. Martha nodded. "Exactly." Evelyn looked back at the ticket. "I told you I'd pay you back. And you tried. You wouldn't take it. I didn't need it then. But you needed this." Evelyn touched the edge of the music box. Martha was quiet for a moment. "Of course I wanted it," she said. "Wanting something and needing it aren't always the same thing." That landed harder than Evelyn expected. For 35 years, she had remembered Martha handing her an envelope as if the money had simply appeared from somewhere Evelyn couldn't see. She had remembered the relief. The rent receipt. Sleeping that night without wondering where she would go. She had never pictured Martha walking into a pawn shop 3 days earlier carrying the last anniversary gift her husband had given her. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Evelyn asked. Martha shrugged. "What good would that have done? I would have known. You would have felt terrible." "I feel terrible now." "Well, that took 35 years. I'd say I bought you some time." Evelyn laughed before she could stop herself. So did Martha. It was such a Martha answer that, for a few seconds, the years between them seemed smaller. Then Martha reached over and placed one hand on Evelyn's. "You were 8 months pregnant," she said. "You were scared. You needed the rent more than I needed a music box." Evelyn lowered her eyes. All those years, she had carried $480 in her memory like an unpaid balance. Martha had carried it differently. Not as money owed. Not even as a sacrifice worth mentioning. Just as the thing that needed doing that week in April. And for the first time, Evelyn understood that paying Martha back was never going to be as simple as returning $480. Evelyn looked at the silver angel sitting between them. For weeks, she had thought of it as something she had found. Now that seemed wrong. It had never belonged to her. She picked it up carefully and held it out to Martha. "This is yours." Martha looked at the music box, but she didn't reach for it. "You bought it. That doesn't make it mine. How much did you pay?" Evelyn smiled. "I'm not telling you." "That much, huh?" "Martha." "All right." Martha finally took it. Her hands moved slowly over the silver base. One thumb passed across the little scratch near the bottom, then up toward the crooked wing. Evelyn watched her face. There was no dramatic reaction. Martha simply sat there holding something she had once expected never to see again. After a moment, she turned the key. The melody started softly. Martha closed her eyes for only a second. "My husband used to wind this too tight," she said. Evelyn smiled. "Daniel?" "He thought if 3 turns were good, 6 had to be better." "Did it work?" "No. He nearly broke it twice." Martha laughed. And just like that, the music box stopped being evidence. It was Daniel's anniversary gift again. Evelyn reached into her purse. "I still want to do something for you." Martha gave her a warning look. "Don't. I can help." "I know you can." "Then let me." Martha set the angel on the table. "Evelyn, listen to me. You came all the way back here after 35 years carrying something I thought was gone forever. That's enough for today." Evelyn wanted to argue. 35 years earlier, she would have. Instead, she sat back. The money was the easiest part now. She could write a check. She could replace furniture, pay bills, make things comfortable. But none of those things would put April 1991 back where it had been. None of them could give Martha back the years she'd spent without Daniel's last anniversary gift. The only thing Evelyn could return was the gift itself. So she let Martha keep it. They drank coffee until it went cold. They talked about old coworkers, bad supervisors, apartments that no longer existed, and people neither of them had thought about in years. Before Evelyn left, Martha walked her to the door. "Keep going, honey," she said. Evelyn laughed. "You're still saying that?" "Still works." Evelyn hugged her. Then, halfway to the car, she stopped. There was one person Martha had never met after that spring in 1991. The baby Evelyn had been carrying when Martha walked into that pawn shop. Daniel Carter was grown now, with a life and family of his own. And suddenly, Evelyn knew who needed to come through Martha's door next. Daniel Carter came to Kansas 2 weeks later. Evelyn had told him enough over the phone that he understood why the trip mattered. She had not told Martha he was coming. Not because she wanted a surprise. She simply wasn't sure how to explain what Daniel represented without making the moment larger than it needed to be. Martha opened the door and looked from Evelyn to the tall man beside her. "This is my son," Evelyn said. Daniel smiled. "Hi, Martha." Martha studied his face. Then she looked at Evelyn. "The baby?" Evelyn nodded. "The baby." Martha let out a quiet laugh. "Well, you took your time." Daniel laughed too. "Apparently, I took my time. Come inside." The silver angel was on a shelf in the living room now. Not behind glass. Not displayed like something valuable. Just sitting beside 2 framed photographs and a small ceramic bowl. Daniel noticed it. His mother had told him about the pawn ticket. About April 12, 1991. About the $480. He walked over to Martha. Mom told me what you did. Martha waved one hand. Your mother needed help. I know. Daniel paused. But I wanted to meet the person who helped her. Martha looked at him for a moment. Then she smiled. Well, now you have. That was all. No speech. No grand repayment. They spent the afternoon at Martha's kitchen table. Daniel showed her pictures of his family. Martha told him stories about his mother from those Wichita days, while Evelyn kept trying to correct the details. Most of Martha's versions were better. Before they left, Daniel asked about the silver angel. Martha took it from the shelf and wound the key. The old melody filled the room. Evelyn listened from the couch. 35 years earlier, she had thought Martha gave her $480. Now she understood it differently. Martha had given up something she could never replace so a frightened young mother could keep a roof over her head long enough to take the next step. And the child Evelyn had been carrying that spring was standing there now, listening to the same music. Sometimes the people who help us most never tell us what helping us cost them. Maybe that is why some debts cannot really be repaid. They can only be understood differently once we finally know the whole story. As Evelyn and Daniel reached the front door, Martha called after her. Evelyn. She turned. Martha smiled. Keep going, honey. Evelyn smiled back. I did. And maybe that was enough. If you discovered decades later that someone you loved had quietly given up something irreplaceable to help you through the hardest season of your life, what would you do? Would you try to repay them, or would you find another way to honor what they gave you? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Tom Lai * de la Ban Sach, Kong Part, Timeline de Thong not 35 years, Jung Nguyen Moi Mock Evidence Va Cam Suk. Ban Chi Vik Copy Tone Bo La Dung Doak Nai. Thumbs up.